Hello, hello. Welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. Happy Monday. I am the host, Mandy Bryce, and this is episode number 157. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with Terri Kearns, who is all the way across the pond near London, about how she has changed her life after years of shame and guilt and a couple almost attempts at suicide, addiction after being the survivor of sexual assault, and how she has changed her mindset to live a happy life where she even feels like what has happened to her over the course of her life is a blessing, and she's no longer a victim and is now helping other people with their life transformations. We also chat about the confidence fairy and actually had a lot of fun considering the theme, which to many may seem dark or unhappy, the positive spin that she has put on her life and the attitude and mindset work she's done has been completely apparent and I think very inspiring. So I really hope you enjoy listening to it. She has also offered a 30-minute discovery call for anyone who wants one, but if you are really lucky and stay tuned to the end, you can learn about how one person can get a full 1-hour call from Terri. So without any further ado, here is Terri Kearns. Hello, welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. I am with Terri Kearns, who is somewhere far away because it's 6 a.m. here and 2 p.m. there. Welcome to the show, Terri.
Oh, thank you. Bless your heart. But you're full of beans, so how'd you do it?
Just got to pump myself up. So where in the world are you?
So I'm from London, but I live just outside London now.
Okay,
I'm
fantastic.
20 minutes away from the centre of town, so just like close enough to get in when I want, but far enough from all the craziness. So yeah, 20 minutes just outside London. I don't usually tell people where I am because I'm like, where's that? So I just say I'm just outside London. It's easier.
There you go. Perfect. And I love how you described it where you're like, I'm close enough where if I want to get there, I can, but far enough away where I don't have to deal with the less ideal parts of being around a huge
craziness. Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love London, but do you know what? I don't want to be there all the time. It's just to both worlds, put it that way.
That's fair. So obviously, you know, the show is called Bold Moves, and to be on here, you must have made some yourself. So why don't you share a little bit about you, your story, and some of the big risks you've taken?
Right. Do you know what? When I tell my story, I've told it so many times, and to me, it's just a story.
Sure.
When I tell people, they're like, "Oh my God," and they look at me like they feel sorry for me, and I'm like, "Do you know what? Before I even say it, I just this is not a pity party. This is not a worries me. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me." And I've even had people say to me, "Whoa, that's dark." It might be dark, but it happened, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
So what happened to me? And actually, I'm glad I've got some peace and quiet here because my daughter doesn't know everything. She's only 12. And so I was abused when I was a little girl by a family member. And then I sort of dealt with that, got on with my life. I tried to get on with my life. And then when I was 16, 17, I got into the whole drug scene, went through a bit of kind of like addiction, not real heavy drugs, but went through a bit of an addiction phase. And then at 17, I tried to take my own life. And then I met my daughter's, actually I'd met my daughter's dad by that point. We ended up having a 16-year relationship. I tried to ignore everything that had happened to me, thought my life was fine when it wasn't fine at all. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years ago, in March 2016, I nearly tried to take my own life again.
Wow.
I think the only difference between this time and the first time was my daughter. My childhood had been ruined. I didn't want to ruin hers as well by losing her mum. So I suppose you could say she's my why. She's my big why. And the reason why I do everything I do. And what I've learned actually is when something happens to you, you can run away from it. You can try and ignore it, all those negative emotions. Mm-hmm. You can try and pretend they're not there, but actually there will come a time when they will catch up with you. Mm-hmm. And ignoring them and pretending that they're not there just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that's what I've learned from that whole situation. And like people say, there's always lessons to be learned.
Right.
And that's what I've learned is you can carry on as much as you want and pretend that everything's fine. But actually, if it's not fine, you need to either face it or you need to realise that it will come out and manifest in other ways, such as addiction and whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of a common theme for people who have dealt with abuse to end up in situations with addiction and suicide attempts and so on. What do you think? You just said your lesson was that, you learned that it catches up with you eventually. What do you think triggered both the good periods where you were, not dealing with addiction and I guess presumably living close to a normal life versus the couple times where you attempted to take your own life or were dealing with addiction?
Do you know what? I just think eventually everything just gets too much because, like you just said, a lot of people that have been abused, they end up in addiction and that kind of stuff and suicide, which sadly it does happen a lot. With abuse, the thing about it is there's a lot of shame and guilt around it. And the sad thing is that shame and guilt is held on to, those emotions, as victims, you hold on to those emotions because you blame yourself.
Sure.
So because I'd spent so long blaming myself, that led to self-loathing. I thought I made it happen. I thought it was my fault. I thought I should have stopped it. So because of that, because I blamed myself, I had all this guilt around it. How could I be a good person? And then if I wasn't a good person, how could I be kind to myself? For years, I was so unkind to myself. And I think in the end, it just took its toll. But luckily, thank God, like 2 years ago, I woke up and thought, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And do you know what? I'm glad that happened to me 2 years ago. Because that wake-up call, that was my turning point. That rock bottom became the time in my life where I thought, right, this is it now. Either I do end up just ending it all because I can't cope with this, or I have to make sure that I never end up in this deep, dark hole again. And I remember promising myself that I will do whatever it takes to get out of this mess and to make sure that I will never end up in this hole again. And do you know what? Talking about addictions, it's not even just about the drugs. I went through the drug stage. That was when we was going out raving. We stopped going out raving, and then I started eating. My addiction was food then.
Sure.
I've never been massively overweight. I'm not overweight at the moment, but I would just stuff my face with comfort food, and then I'd be normal. Then I'd stuff my face, just binging on it. Binging on drugs, binging on food, binging on alcohol. And then when that stopped, it was money. I was addicted to shopping. I was trying to buy, buying things that I didn't really need or didn't really want, to impress people I didn't even like.
I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with addictions, right? If you're addicted to something, you're trying to get yourself into a different state. So when I was doing the drugs, I was feeling better for a little while. When I went shopping, I was feeling better for a little while. When I was eating the comfort food, I was feeling better for a little while. So you're always trying to get yourself into a different state.
Right.
And doing those things will get you out of that negative state for a little while. But once that's gone, you're going to end up back in that state if you don't deal with the emotions behind those addictions.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what did you do starting 2 years ago you said that was your turning point. How have you begun to actually deal with so many years of guilt, shame, self-loathing, and I'm sure just the abuse itself, which wasn't in your control or your fault?
No. Yeah, but you know what? I don't know how. I'd come across a couple of books. I think one of them was Gabby Bernstein. Do you know Gabby Bernstein? Well, yeah, one of her books. And she was talking about inner child work. I remember that day, I remember thinking, so I made that promise to myself that I wouldn't end up in this place again. And then it just hit me. I realised that I needed to stop blaming myself. Now, logically, and all throughout the years, I knew it wasn't my fault. Sure. And I had people telling me so many people, it wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault. And I knew that, but somehow I couldn't stop blaming myself. And I think what the thing is, I think it was easier for me to blame myself than it was to realise that someone actually went out of their way to hurt me. And I think me holding on to that feeling that it was my fault gave me some kind of control over the situation.
Okay.
And because I was a victim, I identified as a victim. without that identity, I had no idea who I was. Without me blaming myself and all that went with it, I had no idea who I was. So even though I'd let go of, oh my God, it wasn't my fault,
Mm-hmm.
that you know, you'd think that, but oh my God, yes, that's amazing. You know, everything's fine now. It wasn't fine because I didn't, without that identity and that blame, I didn't know who I was. For months, I was completely lost. But I realised that it was okay to tell myself it wasn't my fault. I did the inner child work, and another thing that I'd realised was I'd been blaming that little girl through the eyes of an adult.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've been looking at her as an adult, it was your fault, but actually I needed to put myself in that situation as that little girl. And I remember thinking, and I remember thinking to myself, there's nothing she could have done. She didn't understand what a paedophile was. She didn't understand what sexual abuse was.
Right.
There was absolutely nothing she could have done. And I remember crying because all those years I blamed myself, but really I was blaming that little girl.
Sure.
So that really upset me because I'd been unkind to her for so long. So I had to do forgiveness work around that. I had to forgive myself for blaming her. And I had to make a promise that I would take care of her for so long, because for years I'd let her down.
Right.
Because I blamed her. But I think when you can stop blaming yourself is when everything changes. As soon as you realise that it's okay to tell yourself it wasn't your fault, that's when everything changes. But so many people don't get to that point. And they might not even realise that telling themselves it was their fault gives them that sense of control. They might not even realise why they're telling themselves it was their fault. And logically, like me, they might know it wasn't their fault. But it's hard to let go of that.
Sure.
It's really hard to let go of that. It's really sad, actually.
It is. And there's a pretty huge gap sometimes between logic and our feelings. And even if we logically understand that something, makes perfect sense, it doesn't necessarily become truth for us right away.
Yeah.
So you did this from a book primarily, or did you see a therapist too? That sounds like you did this independently, which is amazing.
Do you know what, right? I did do a lot of it on my own. I went to the doctor. I told them I was feeling suicidal. They were not very good, actually. No, but in the end, I put a complaint in, and I did get to see a therapist probably about 6 months later. And I remember thinking to myself, what, I might not even be alive by then.
Right,
What happened? Why? It's just, I don't know if you know what it's like over here. We've got the NHS, we've got free healthcare, but sometimes there's a bloody long wait for that healthcare. Do you know what I mean?
I guess.
So I had to wait. And I think in the end, I got 6 sessions, and it was good. The lady was lovely. I don't know if it really helped. I think, to be honest with you, most of it, I did do it on my own.
Wow, that's incredible.
Know what? It is actually. And do you know what? It's another thing that's made me realise. When we realise we are in control of what goes on up here, instead of giving our power away to someone else or something else, when you realise that all this is in your control, it changes your life.
Yeah.
I had PTSD. I had depression for years. I remember saying to my friend, I would never ever be able to stop taking these tablets. She was like, yeah, you will. I was like, no, I won't. But I couldn't see my life without my antidepressant tablets.
Right.
But when I started doing the work up here, all that just went. The depression, PTSD, it all went because I was finally able to take control of what was in here. And it wasn't easy. But sometimes people wait until they're in so much pain. Like I waited until I nearly killed myself. Like I was in that much pain. It took for me to be in that much pain to realise I need to do something about this.
Right.
Maybe for some people it depends on how bad that pain is. I don't know.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, but most of it I did myself with books. I paid for a course that was £21. I did that. That was all about mindset, and it just went on from there.
That's absolutely incredible. And now you mentioned that over near London where you are, you have free healthcare, and that one of the drawbacks is that you have to wait a long time sometimes. And imagining waiting 6 months when you're suicidal is insane to me. But I'm wondering if, because in the United States, there's a huge stigma around mental health. Is it the same in the UK, or are people kind of understanding that, okay, it's a mental illness just like a physical illness, and they deserve the same sort of care, treatment, understanding, as it not being, again, your fault?
Yeah. No, I think, sadly, I think it's the same as where you are. There's so much. We're trying to let go of the stigma around it, and people are talking about it a lot more.
Right.
But there is still a huge stigma. There's a big problem with money being put into mental health. There's just not enough money for the people that need it.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. There's kids that are struggling. That's really opened my eyes, actually. My daughter's just started going to what you call high school. She's in high school now. She's 12. Mm-hmm. And so many of her friends are struggling.
Yeah.
Some of them are self-harming. They've got no confidence. They've got no self-esteem. So that's really opened my eyes. And that's another thing that I want to work on. And for kids, there's not really that much. I know I've had a friend who was, they've got like a child's mental health department that, you know, kids can get help. They're having to wait months as well. Some of them are having to go miles away to get the help they need. So they're like hundreds of like miles away from their parents. There's just not enough. There's just not enough being done. And it should be, for me, I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but I think that what goes on in here is more important than anything else. Because there's scientific proof now that the mind and body are connected. So if your mind's not right, it lowers your immune system, and then you're going to start getting problems in your body.
Right. Yeah.
For me, this is so important.
Right.
But it's just not talked about. It's just not talked about enough.
Yeah. Even on a small scale, if I'm stressed, I'll notice, more headaches or more digestive problems. And it's even just minor things in my life that can trigger that. So I can't imagine what something big like what you experienced could potentially do. So how do you keep yourself on top of it? Because I imagine that that's something, like, yes, you had a turning point, but it takes work, I imagine, day to day to keep yourself from making a U-turn.
Yeah, no, you're right. And do you know what? I'm really glad you said that. I've worked with people who they start to do the work, and then they think, oh, I'm all right now, and then they stop. And then when they stop, they slip back into their old habits. I've done it. I'm not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I still have my doubts. I still have my bad days. I talk about this a lot. No one's got the perfect, happy life every day. That's rubbish. And so I do have to stay on the top of it, and I do have to stay aware of my thoughts. I get everything out on paper. I journal every morning just to get my thoughts out there. I'm like, think about what's going on for me this morning, what's going on in my head. If there's anything to work through, I'll work through it. It's like, if you were trying to get a good body, you wouldn't just go to the gym once and then stop. Do you know what I mean?
Or eat one salad or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And do you know what? I talk about this a lot as well. Repetition is everything. It's how we learn. So my daughter went, she was learning to swim. She didn't go swimming once and then go, right, that's it, I've got it now. If you're learning something new, you have to do it every day, or you have to keep doing it until you've got it, right?
Sure.
But so I had like 35, 40 years of like negative programming that I had to change. I didn't do that by doing it once or twice, a week or a month. I have to do it every day. And I've had quite a few people say to me, oh, it's all right for you. You've got self-belief. And I'm like, yeah, hang on a minute. It didn't just fall into my lap.
Right.
I worked on myself to get that self-belief. It didn't just fall out of nowhere. I didn't, pray for it.
The self-belief fairy came and left it for you.
The self-belief fairy came, a little confidence fairy. No, it doesn't work like that. I bloody worked at it,
Yeah.
I have to do it every day. And do you know what? People have said to me, oh, I can't listen to what's going on in my head. No, you can listen. You just don't want to listen.
Sure.
You can listen. We can all listen. And self-awareness is so important.
Absolutely.
So important. Knowing what's going on, listening to what's going on. And another thing I say is don't believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. Because most of the time, our thoughts just come in. We can't control every single thought we have. You can question it, and you can choose to believe something different.
Sure.
And like you said, that new positive way of thinking, it does take, you work at it. It takes a while,
Right.
But eventually you're going to build new neural pathways in your brain, and that new positive way of thinking will be like your new normal.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of similarly to what the realization you came to about knowing that you were blaming a little girl or yourself as a little girl. One thing that I like to tell people whenever the topic of positive self-talk comes up is think about the thoughts that you have about yourself and whether or not you would say that to your best friend, or whether your best friend would say that to you. Like, a lot of friendships would end if, like, for example, some of the things I think about myself, if someone else said that to me, I'd probably smack them. But we tolerate so much from ourselves.
That's a really good point. And I'd say that to people as well. And I've said to people, go and say that to your daughter, go and say that to your son. You wouldn't do it. So why do you find it so easy to be so horrible to yourself? And you're so, if you wouldn't say it to someone you care about, don't say it to yourself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Really good point, yeah.
So you mentioned a Gabby Bernstein book being instrumental in kind of your turnaround, your turning point. Do you remember the name of the book, and do you have any other book recommendations for anybody who...
Yeah, do you know what? This one, it might have been The Universe Has Your Back. Might have been that. I think it was that one. But another book that is just amazing. I think he passed away. He's dead now. Dr. David R. Hawkins, and it's called Letting Go: The Pathway to Surrender. Okay. And he talks about the levels of consciousness, and he talks about the emotions at the levels of consciousness, right? And when I read this book, I was like, oh my God, this was written for me. Because all the emotions that I was feeling, all the different levels of consciousness, he talks about the things that you might go through at those different levels, like the anxiety and the depression and all that. And he talks about all that and the different, like the different energies. And if you're trying to get out of where you are, if you're not happy where you are right now, that book is amazing. Amazing.
Okay, those are great recommendations. I know that people have recommended The Universe Has Your Back before on the show, but the second one I haven't heard of yet. So I'm excited for our listeners and viewers to potentially have that resource. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, honestly, if you're scared to let go, or if you know you need to let go of anything, any emotions, that's the best one, without a doubt. Yeah.
I love that. So on that note, what is the scariest thing you've ever done, or scariest moment of your life so far?
Oh God. Do you know what? It might sound crazy, but we were just talking about it. The scariest thing for me was when I knew that I had to start being kind to myself.
Wow.
And that sounds crazy because, like we were just saying, it should be, we should be able to, we should be kind to ourselves before we're kind to anyone. We can't love anyone, we can't give and receive love completely if we don't love ourselves. But because I've never done it before, and I spent my whole life hating myself, it scared the hell out of me.
Sure, it's time for radical self-love, right?
Yeah, but once I've done it, my eyes were opened. Why would I close them again? A few times I wanted to run back to my old negative ways, but I couldn't, because I promised myself I wouldn't go back there again. But like I said, don't get me wrong, I do have my bad moments, but I have the tools and strategies to deal with it now.
I love that. That's so important. Yeah. So I'm curious, when you were in that moment where you realized, okay, now it's time for me to practice radical self-love and be my biggest cheerleader and my own best friend, how did you push through to that? Because that's a new territory, even though it seems like something that should be natural to us. It's a new territory, and that's scary. That's why it was, the scariest moment of your life, which is amazing considering what you've been through, a couple close calls with suicide attempts, and the scariest thing has been to be kind to yourself. So how do you push through, and how would you recommend our listeners or viewers push past fear in a moment if they need to?
Do you know what? For me, it was just a case of having to. And do you know what? We overthink a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We make things harder than they need to be. And I just think, maybe at the time I could have just asked myself, a lot of the times like I said, I wanted to run away from my ego, kicked off, it didn't like it, which it will kick off. Anything new or different, your ego will try and keep you where you are because it's new. it's different. It thinks you're going to die. It thinks you're unsafe. That's rubbish. No one's going to die from loving themselves. Do you know what I mean? But do you know what? You just have to just keep on doing it. You just have to do it. Ask yourself, do I want to stay like I am or like I was? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Right.
Don't overthink it. Do I want to change the way I think? Yes or no? Do I want to love myself? Yes or no? Do I want to be happy and be kind to myself? Yes or no?
Sure.
And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. Just don't listen to that ego, because when you've got that self-awareness and you know it's your ego kicking off, try and keep you safe, you can just treat it like it's that scared little child in you. It's throwing a tantrum. It thinks you're going to die. But just tell it, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. This is what we're doing now. And if you keep doing it, sooner or later, your ego will get on board and it will say, oh, all right, then this is good, this is fine. And you can just carry on. Just carry on.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's such a good point that's come up a few times in the fear discussion on this podcast, is that our brains haven't evolved as quickly as our lives have. So we still get that fight or flight, like we're running from a mammoth or something, when it's like an upsetting email or something that's not life or death. That's our body's like, ah.
You know what? That's it. It hasn't evolved for how many millions of years, and our ego's job is to keep us safe. Is to survive. It's to survive. So it literally thinks we're going to die. You're not going to die.
Right. Absolutely.
As long as you realize that and just keep that aware of that, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And I love too that you kind of touched on just like, all right, you have to look at where you are. And if you want that to change or not, you have to do something, because just doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. So do I want to be happy? Yes or no?
Do you know what, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to yes or no. Do you want this or not? No, and don't say yes but no, but don't all the button because you can't do this, because I can't do this, but yes or no. It's a simple yes or no.
What do you think of the perspective, looking at it as, mental illness, and that obviously has varying degrees? Do you think that there are people who can't necessarily do it on their own, like you were able to just decide and do it? Or do you think that with enough work, someone could still, like you said, it's yes or no?
Do you know what? I think if you want it badly enough, some people might think they need help. You might need help. But I know so many people that have been through some awful stuff. And I honestly think that we can, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, we can overcome anything.
Sure.
And if you're telling yourself you can't, I think that you might be lying to yourself maybe. When I look back on it, I can't do this. That was my ego trying to keep me safe. You might make up a load of excuses why you can't do it. They're just excuses, again, trying to keep you safe. Self-sabotage maybe.
Yeah.
I honestly think that all of us have got everything we need within us to heal ourselves, whether that's mentally, physically, whatever.
Okay.
Some people might need help or might think they need help, and it is good to have support, but deep down I think we can all do it. We can all do it.
Okay. I just was curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah.
So I am also curious what you are doing with yourself and your knowledge now that you've had this sort of transformation today.
Do you know what? If you'd have told me I've been doing this a year ago, I would have just laughed in your face. I've played small for so long. Kept myself shrunk, hidden, so no one could see me or hear me, that kind of stuff. I've written 2 articles for some like massive websites that I love, just written them, sent them off, didn't even think anything about it really. They've both been published. So for me, that's huge. That's
sure,
just
congratulations.
Story.
Did you send me those links?
Oh, did I?
If you didn't, you should, so that I can put them in the show notes so everyone can check
them out. Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah,
of
do you know Thrive Global?
Do I know what global?
Thrive Global.
Yes.
One's on there and the other one's on Elephant Journal. Do you know Elephant Journal?
I've heard of it, I think.
Yeah, I love it. One's on there and one's on Thrive. And I'm waiting for Tiny Buddha. I want to send one to Tiny Buddha as well, and that's it. I'm done then. And then I want to do some I'm looking at doing a TED talk. So I want to look at that. So I'm just trying to get myself out there. Do you know what? It's nothing to do with ego. I know, and so many people have said to me, I know I've got a powerful story, and if it helps just one person, that's fine. If it helps just one person, that's fine. And do you know what? Because I know what it is to be in emotional pain, I don't like seeing people in emotional pain. I feel other people's pain. I want to go and do some stuff with kids in the schools. I think the curriculum is a joke. I think what they teach our kids is a joke. And seeing, like I said, seeing the things that my daughter's friends are going through, they're suffering.
Right.
For me, we should be teaching self-love. We should be teaching self-confidence. We should be teaching self-belief.
Right.
They're not doing that. Why are they not doing that? So I'm going to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do, or I don't know if anyone's going to listen to me, but I'm not going to stay quiet anymore. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try and get in the schools and see if we can sort of teach the kids a bit more about the stuff that I think they should be learning about, instead of stuff they're never going to use once they leave school anyway.
Sure.
Don't even get me started on that.
I'm a former teacher, so I know exactly. Yeah.
Oh, no.
You didn't offend me. But no, I totally agree. We spent 1/7 of our year either testing or preparing for standardized tests. I'm like, well, when did we have the chance to teach anything that was on the test?
So glad you agree with me.
I think most people are at least in agreement that there needs to be some sort of change. I think the manner in which it should go about and how is where people argue, but I think most people agree that what's being going on, at least in our country, is not what kids. So would you say that that's in line with your purpose? Do you know what your purpose is, or
you know what?
Defining that?
That is, as I'm kind of growing and evolving, that's the thing, we never stay still. We should always look into growing and evolving, and this has only come up in the last few weeks, actually. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. So I think my purpose has evolved, and I do think that whole thing with the schools is a big part of it now.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't like seeing people in pain. And there are so many kids that have got mental health problems now.
Sure.
And I said this to someone, we all go through negative emotions, right? Negative emotions, they're not bad for us. They don't affect our well-being.
Right.
But when you hold on to them negative emotions for too long, that is what is going to affect your well-being.
Sure.
And I know so many people that have come out of school. Someone said that, a kid bullied them, a teacher said that, and that stays with them for the rest of their lives. And there are so many adults walking around with the beliefs that they had as a child, and it's just not serving them.
Right.
It's just not serving them. And it's holding on to those negative emotions that holds people back.
Absolutely.
And that's when they end up with the mental health problems and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So still defining the purpose, but you kind of have a direction at least. So that's fantastic. It's always funny because people ask me like, oh, or what are we going to talk about? I'm like, oh, just easy questions about you. Like, what's your purpose in life? But
I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. It's been brilliant.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it so far. So I'm curious, I believe you mentioned at the beginning of our chat that your daughter doesn't know about. So how does that work with not playing small, getting published all over the place, possibly doing a TED Talk, but also keeping it secret from your daughter, who I assume lives with you at least some of the time?
She's here 90% of the time. Do you know what? I'm in real conflict with this because, like I said, she is my wife, and I want her to know. She inspires me every day. I want to be her inspiration, and I want her to know that anything's possible for anyone that believes in themselves, right?
Right.
And I sort of tell her that all the time, but she doesn't know about the article. She doesn't know that I want to go and do a TED Talk. She heard me talking to someone about going into her school, and she was like, oh my God, no, you're not doing that. You're so embarrassing. She doesn't want me to go anywhere near a school. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But that's the thing. She's only 12.
Yeah.
and she doesn't know my story. I think she might know that something happened to me when I was little. I think she's overheard conversations that I've had on the phone when I've talked to my brother or whatever. So I took little ear rolls listening at the door. So I think she does know something's happened, but I've not sat her down and said, right, this is what happened to mummy, whatever. I've not had that conversation. And I do think she does need to know, because obviously it's a part of who I am.
Sure.
But I don't know whether I maybe feel like she's too young. And the whole thing with, like, you know, I come that close to taking my own life 2 years ago. And for a long time, I felt really bad about that.
Sure.
Obviously, I nearly left my daughter without a mum.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel guilty about it. It's where I was. It's just where I was and it happened. You know,
right.
I'm not going to feel guilty about it. But do I want her to know that I nearly took my own life? What is she going to think when she finds out that I nearly took my own life? Sure. Is she going to blame herself? Is she going to think, well, you know, her mummy nearly left her without a mum? So I'm really like, oh my God. 1 minute I'm thinking, I hope she doesn't find out about these articles. And the next minute I'm thinking, well, should she know? You know, look at how strong I am. This is what happened, but I got through it. You know, can I use it to inspire her maybe? Or is it going to, you know, is she going to go the other way and be like, oh my God, my mummy nearly left me? So I'm really stuck in that. I want her to know everything.
Sure. But
I don't want to scare her and thinking, oh, what, you know, am I going to do it again? Or I don't know what she's going to do with that information if and when I tell her.
Yeah, the only thing that comes to my mind is it would be probably better if you told her than if she Googled you, or if one of her friends put your name in Google and was like, did you know your mom almost killed herself? You know, like that would be worse than finding out directly from you, I think. So
you're right, actually, and I hadn't thought about that.
Something to consider in 2018 with Googling is that could be a crazy
you're right, actually. You know what? You're right. You're right. Yeah.
And having open conversation about it too, you can work together. You can be the person for her dealing with what happened to you that you wish you had when you were a little girl.
Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, we have had a lot of conversations about her body, you know, how her body is hers and all that kind of stuff, which is another thing they should be teaching in schools. We have had a lot of those conversations, and I have been so overprotective. Well, she thinks I'm being overprotective. I just think I'm being protective. So I might be a little bit stricter than some parents just because of what I've been through.
Sure.
And there have been times when I've said to her, one day, Chloe, you'll understand.
Yeah.
One day you'll understand, you know, when she has kids or when she understands what I've been through, why I am the way I am. But I do think she's getting out. She's only 12, but kids that these days, they understand a lot.
I was just going to say, I think we underestimate kids and what they can handle, what they can understand. So.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I am getting to the stage where I think I'm going to have to tell her something. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad you said that. Thank you. Actually.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've made me think now. She can probably do a lot more than I think she can. Yeah.
It's probably true. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have another bold move ahead of you.
Oh my God.
Conversation that you may not be looking forward to, but I bet you'll be grateful that you had.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Another bold move.
It's time.
I love that. Bold move. You know what? Life is all about bold moves.
Absolutely. That's why I called the podcast.
That's brilliant. It's such a good name. It's brilliant.
Thank you. All right. So you've given such good advice with the book recommendations that have changed your life. I'm wondering if you have any other advice to give to our listeners or viewers, any lessons you've learned recently, anything you wish you learned a long time ago, just anything that you think would be helpful to someone listening to or watching this interview. I would love it if you could have this opportunity to share it.
Yeah, do you know what? Just a really simple one that I repeat a lot. Everything flows from the relationship you have with yourself. When your relationship with yourself is as it should be, it affects every area of your life. Every area. I remember working with someone a while ago, and she said to me, if I start being kinder to myself, will that affect this and will that affect that? And I said, it will affect every area of your life.
Right.
It changes everything. You're not, people that, so many people like looking for validation all the time, looking for acceptance. They're scared to put their opinions across. Other people's opinions are more important than theirs.
Right.
They don't speak up for what they want or what they believe in because they're so busy trying to people please all the time.
Right.
Because they don't respect themselves.
Yeah.
But once you've got that in place, it changes everything. It changes everything. And the people that don't like you, they won't matter. And the people that do, that's fine.
I was just going to ask if, because it sounds like primarily that impact on everything would be positive, but of course that's not the case. So, but you're at a...
Yeah, I did a free 5-day challenge a few months ago. And one of the girls in there, she fully went for it. And she's like, oh my God, I'm starting to stand up for myself more now. I think it was one of her parents or both of her parents for as long as she could remember, always putting her down. She never stood up for herself. We did this free 5-day challenge and she said, oh my God, I'm starting to stand up to my parents now. They don't like it.
Of course not.
That's not your issue. I said, that's not your issue. I said, I'm really proud of you. Well done for doing it. But that's up to them what they do with it now. That's not your issue.
Right.
For so long they've been used to her just taking the rubbish that they were giving her.
Right.
But now it's turned around and she stood up for herself, they don't know what to do with it. But that's what happens when you start to respect yourself. You don't take crap from people. We're not here to take crap from people. Do you know what I mean? We're just giving that to ourselves. You don't have to take it from other people as well. So just start to like and respect yourself, and everything outside of you will change.
I love that. So were you hosting the 5-day challenge or were you part of it? Okay.
I was hosting it.
Fabulous. So that brings me to my next question. Since you were hosting it, I guess I don't know what capacity in which you were doing that, but I'm wondering if people want to find you and maybe be a part of your next challenge or something like that, where they can find you online, and then what you have to offer, like that 5-day challenge or other things as well.
Do you know what? I've just finished another one, but you can find me on terrikearns.com.
Okay.
And if you go to one-to-one coaching, we'll have a free 30-minute breakthrough session.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, don't underestimate the power of one session. We can get through so much in one session. Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that what you're doing these days professionally? Is it life coaching or?
Life coaching.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Actually, I don't know if I'd call it life coaching. There are so many life coaches. See, the thing is, right, I'm not just, what's getting on my nerves, just think positive thoughts. I can't, I'm not about that. I'm not about just think positive. We're here to experience everything. We're not all happiness and love all the time.
Right.
There's a light part of me and there's a dark part of me. And I embrace all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we can't pretend that dark side's not there.
Absolutely.
And we can't pretend it's not happening. We need to embrace it. It's part of who we are. And if we didn't have light, we wouldn't know what dark is. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm all about transformation. There's a lot I don't know if coaches, but just do affirmations, just think positive thoughts, meditate for a little while. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
I like the work I do is deep. I suppose because I had to go in deep into myself.
Right.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
So when I work with people, we go deep into what's going on, and they have to be ready for that. And I don't stand for any excuses. I don't stand for the victim mentality. But if I joined my clients in that victim mentality, it doesn't help them and it doesn't help me.
Right.
So I've got sympathy and empathy by the bucket load.
Right.
But you need to be ready to step up and let all that go, let your excuses go, and stand up and be who you are really meant to be, like in this world. We've all got something to give to this world.
Sure, absolutely.
That's what I think anyway. So I'm all about the transformation. It's all about transformation for me. because I've done it. I've done the transformation.
Right. That's a great resume, I think.
Yeah. Do you know what? And I'm great. All this stuff that's happened to me, you might think I'm nuts, but I'm grateful for all of it, because all of it got me to. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if that hadn't happened. I'm grateful for all of it. Yeah.
That's the last question that I always ask, which it doesn't necessarily have to be the last question, but I usually save it for last. Is on a scale of 1 to 11, if little Terri, who's 8 years old, could look in a crystal ball and see Terri today on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little Terri be?
Do you know what? She would be 11.5.
I like it.
Do you know what? I've been thinking about something someone said to me. I remember saying to someone years ago, if you'd have told me I was going to go through this, through all this, I'd have said, no, keep it. I don't want my life. Just keep it. We've talked about a lot. What I've talked about isn't all, there's a lot more. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I don't regret any of it. We can only do the best with what we've got at the time.
Sure.
And like I said, it all got me to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what I'm doing now. Yeah. So yeah, it's just the way it is. It happened, sure. Get on with it. And I use it now. What I used to say was, my abuse holds me back. I can't. Who would I have been without it? It took me away from who I was. I don't know what I could be doing now if I hadn't been abused. But now what I do is I use it to move me forward and say, what can I do because I was abused? Sure. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. Say, I can't do that because I was abused. I use it to empower me rather than disempower me. So I talk with my hands a lot.
It keeps things interesting. No, I think that's fantastic. And I think it's actually not an uncommon, you prefaced it with you may think I'm crazy, but I'm grateful for all this. And it's not uncommon for some of the people that I've interviewed who have been through some pretty extreme stuff to, give me 11 or higher and be very grateful for cancer, paralysis, you name it. And people are just no, I'm where I am now because of exactly what happened to me, and I wouldn't change it. Yeah, it's super inspiring.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Part of my podcast is selfish. I know. I was going to say part of my podcast is selfish because every single interview I do, I'm so energized and inspired and motivated. So that's why I love sharing it with other people, is to help.
You're doing amazing, honestly. I need to go and listen to the rest of them now. You know what? So, when we think we're beaten, when we think we can't get through whatever it is, there's always a way through. Mm-hmm. And in that wound where you think all the pain is, that's where the light comes in. Do you know what I mean? And there is always light. There's always light in any situation. I can't wait to listen to the rest of your podcast now. Go and listen to them now. Yeah.
I hope you enjoy them.
I will. Yeah, of course I will.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for everything that you've shared. We'll definitely have people go to your site from the show notes and find you, and hopefully you can help with more transformations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. The sun's shining now in London. Yeah.
Yay. Perfect timing.
Oh, thank you so much.
See, I told you that even though it sounded like it was going to be a really depressing podcast, we had a lot of fun, actually, which is probably an indication of how coaching sessions with Terri would be. So I told you that you had the opportunity for everyone to get one, and she mentioned in the call, terrikearns.com is where you would find that. In case spelling is not your strong point or you're not able to guess if she's a Terri with a Y or an I, how you spell Kearns, and so on, you can always find the information at www.mandiem.com/episode 157, because this is the 157th episode. That is where I will have information on how you can get to Terri and find her resources. I'll have the links to the articles that she mentioned when we chatted, and I will also have the giveaway for you to get a full hour of Terri's time to work toward your transformation. I hope that you absolutely love that. Now, unfortunately, because of how many people deal with different challenges in life, you are probably able to think of several people who could benefit from listening to this. It's unfortunate because they could benefit because of a sad thing that's happened to them or because of where they are with their mindset. However, the fortunate thing is that you could potentially be helping a lot of people by sharing this episode. Yes, this is a little selfish of me to ask because I do want to live my dream of helping as many people as I possibly can, and the best way for me to do that is by getting as many ears and eyeballs on this episode as possible. So I do have a little bit of motivation toward my own goals in asking this. However, when I think about the people whose lives could be positively impacted by Terri and her attitude and potentially the call with her, I don't feel so bad asking. So if you know anyone that might like to hear this, or if you want to just share it to your whole social network because there are people that you don't know what they might be going through, I would really appreciate it. On that same token, I would also love it if you could give me a nice rating on iTunes. I do check that regularly, and when I see a new one, I get super excited. I would absolutely love it. It's kind of like your way of telling iTunes that this podcast is worth listening to, so that then iTunes will, of course, also suggest it to other people, which is that same goal in mind. I don't want you to miss any episodes, so if you could subscribe, you would get an automatic download or an alert to the next episode, and the next one is a challenge from Terri, so you do not want to miss your chance to do something that might attract that confidence fairy. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.